Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live, actually live. The Freight Coach Podcast, ladies and gentlemen, the top podcast in transportation. We are coming every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central. I'm going to save the rest of the intro here because I have a guest in studio, and I love it because this is, they're the second guy who's came in here, and
who's the first guy?
Drew, actually, Drew Bertner.
Another SBI guy.
Yeah, but man, I love it, and this is why I got this space the way that I did, because I wanted an area where people could come in and and do this and have a pretty legit setup. And it's like I also worked pretty hard to get to this point, and it's like I just want to have an area where people can kind of come into and shoot the shit and talk about what we like to talk about the most.
Absolutely, the space is great too. I love it. Like this is awesome.
Yeah, and we're building it out. So like this is where I normally do my live shows, just right next door. Same, obviously, complex, same building. And yeah, I got this out, and when they came to me about this place, and I saw it, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly where I need to go. That's what I had in my vision to make it happen. And now it's like we're just going to build it up, and I'll be investing in more cameras and stuff here, so we can do like a multi-angle camera and everything.
I thought our podcast room in Vancouver was cool, but this is dynamite, man. I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah, because I'm thinking what we're gonna do here is put like a black curtain up there and just work on kind of some of the sound in here, because it's a bigger room. And that's the next thing for me is always those little tweaks to the audio quality, video quality, and everything else, just to make it up there. Because in my mind, Joe Rogan and I are on the exact same plane.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, dude. And especially, when you were like, hey, I'm coming into Phoenix, and I'm like, yeah, come in. Let's do this in person. Let's talk about this. And, it's been a wild ride so far in 2024. And, I think it's going to be interesting as people start prepping for 2025. And I always like to just kind of set the expectation, at least, because I'm always looking long term. I'm looking over the next 12 months, but like I have to operate in the now. I have to operate in today, because like it doesn't matter what I think is going to happen in 12 months or 18 months. If I don't put in the work today, it's all irrelevant at that point, right? So it's like I pay attention, but I also don't. And I really hone into like my daily tasks to grow my agency, to grow my book of business, to continue to grow my, all of this stuff as a whole, because I think it's so easy to get caught up and, oh, is it going to be better now? Instead of waiting for it to get better, you got to take that action to create your own market.
100%. I mean, you're constantly got to be innovating and working the business. This is not a business where you sit and wait for things to happen. You got to make things happen, and you have to be on every single day. I mean, it's the same thing, even making calls, building relationships, or expanding relationships within your book of business. That's a constant daily process that you got to be on board with.
Yeah, you have to build that system out. And I think like, because I just put a post out there yesterday about this is it's like, closing those revenue gaps, right? Because like as you're going out there and building your book of business up, whether you have established customers or you're going in it from cold, you have those ebbs and those flows. And those, you're going to have those record months where you're like, oh, busy, and then boom, falls off a cliff. And then it's like, it's closing that gap. And it's like, that's another mental hurdle that I think a lot of people don't even realize, but they're going to have to face at some point, whether, like coming out and being an agent and everything. How are you like, because, you talk to agents, current agents, prospective agents all the time. How are you kind of bridging that gap of like really setting the realistic standards of like what you're walking into? Because I think, entrepreneurship in general, Mike, has just been glorified on social media. It's been glorified like, oh, it's great. You're going to be free. You're going to be a millionaire. And that all could happen. But like, you got to work 100 times harder than you think.
And if everybody thought it was that easy, they'd all be doing it and be billionaires. The challenge is it's still a process. Building any business, it takes time. Here's the way I look at it. If someone can start their own business, becoming, I don't know, a drywaller, still got to go out and buy equipment, get himself set up. There's costs. He's got to build up his customer base. It takes time. Same thing coming into being a freight agent. I mean, you got to have your relationship. You got to have customers that are willing to move with you, or customers who are willing to start with you. But None of your customers are going to give you all their business right off the bat. That's the process. That's that relationship process. And now, and I was actually thinking about this last week. We had Colette, who was actually
Yeah.
in town in Vancouver, and she has some customers that she's been doing business with for 10 plus years. But I asked her, like, when you started, how much of that business did you get? And she's like, not much. I had to prove myself. I had to build my worth. I had to show my value to them. But over time, as that relationship continued to build and get stronger, and she solved more problems. Actually, that's one thing too, how you really build credibility is when you solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
Like when freight goes normally on a to B scenario, that's easy, man. Anyone can do that. But when the crap hits the fan and you got to start dealing with stuff after hours and you got to bear bad news to your customer, but at the same time coming up with solutions, that's how you create your worth.
No, that's exactly it. Like, I mean, every cold call I made this morning before I did this show, everything that I said, they've heard it all 1,000 times, right? Like it does not matter. But it's, because I truly feel like the real differentiator is going to be like when I'm actually operating inside of their freight, and, because I'm connected to a bunch of transportation managers on LinkedIn, and man, I just don't think people are actually paying attention, because your prospects, your customers, they will tell you everything you want if you're asking the right questions, but taking the right approach. I mean, this guy posted yesterday, he's like, stop coming at me with the exact same line, how you're going to save me money, you're going to do this, and then you lie to me about the customers that you're working with, the connections that we don't have, and then you use my name out there to leverage it. And I'm like, man, that's just some of the most shady stuff that I've seen. And I'm like, and I say this a lot, man. I'm like, brokers are our own worst enemy. And it's stuff like that where it is. So it's like, some of the new stuff that's going on out there, like I'm looking for anything to raise the standards in these industries to drown out a lot of that crap.
Well, any customer you call who you're prospecting and cold calling, they don't know you from
the
next person right away. You have a wall that you're trying to break down. I mean, they're trying to get you off the phone as quickly as you possibly can. And I find, we talked about this before, is you got to listen to the small stuff. Like if someone says, hey, I'm really happy who I'm using, or I've been using them for many, many years. Well, guess what? He's loyal. Acknowledge the loyalty.
Yeah.
Like people want to hear, that if you recognize some of their good qualities and you share that breaks down that wall as well too. And I think you were talking about what you say when someone says, hey, I'm happy with who I'm using. I'm really loyal to who I'm using.
I mean, I literally, anytime somebody tells me like, hey, we're good, we've been using the same providers for 10 years, I always break it down like human to human. I'm like, hey, as a founder, I'm searching for that. I'm trying to build that up. So to know that that's out there, thank you for that information. It's because to me that's what it's all about, man. Like you're going to put in so much effort out there to build up your operation, no matter what. You're going to make thousands and thousands of calls, everything to get a couple of customers that you can grow and scale with. Because that's ultimately what it boils down to. The data doesn't lie, man. It's like 99% rejection rate in sales across every industry.
And what do they say? How many touch points does it take before you actually can start?
12.
There you go.
It's like 12 touch points.
And I think a lot of people give up way too soon too.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that customer is never going to work with me. He told me no too many times. No one wants to hear no.
Yeah.
But the reality is in this business, you got to be able to take no and just move on with it. And just, you know what? No doesn't mean never.
Yeah. No, and that's exactly it. And it's like nothing's going to change in 2024 or 2025. Like
still relationships.
Exactly. None of this changes. And again, I feel like way too many people focus on the macro of things. They really do. They overlook the micro daily tasks that they have to do, because like, again, if the freight market improves, awesome. If you're not selling, if you're not cold calling, the business isn't going to find you. You have to find the business. And that's why I get so frustrated and pissed off when I see this stuff out there. Like it takes every ounce of me to not comment on a lot of stuff on social media. I literally hold myself to the standards of, all right, would $1 billion CEO reply to that? And I'm like, no. So I move on. But I'm like, again, you want to sit there and say, if it improves, okay, so what if it does improve? Say if 2025, it absolutely cataclysmic takeoff, rates are $5 a mile, hypothetical, all of that, and you're not doing anything about it. Do you think like the business is just going to come to you? And that's what pisses me off so much.
The same process applies whether we're in a down market or in a market that's is the perfect storm for us, right? You still got to put in the work. You still got to build those relationships. You still got to make the calls. You still got to create value to these people.
Yeah.
Relationships don't change whether it's a down market or a great market.
Yeah. No, I'm right there.
To relationships.
Doing that, and that's exactly it. And I feel like you see that out there a lot where it's just the instant gratification, and I feel like with our daily lives right now, you order something on Amazon, boom, it's there within 12 hours. Like that, the expectations are a lot greater. So everybody wants that instant result in business. And, it's like you can go out there and you can do something right for 1,000 shipments, right? But if you're not entitled to the 1,001st, like you have to keep that mentality every single
Yeah.
time. And I think, I don't know, like
You're
I'm
only
sure
as good as your last shipment.
Yeah.
We hear that quite a bit too.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And and I know that you don't have to be older to really realize that and have that set in, but a lot of that stuff, like I appreciate business way more now that I've had to fight for it for the the last going on 5 years now of being out on my own through all of this is man, I don't take anybody's business for granted. I don't take anybody's revenue for granted. I truly want everybody to get a 10x return, and I'm striving for a 10x return of whether it's freight, like say they're giving me $10,000 a month in freight spend. I want them to get $100,000 in orders from the freight that I'm moving for them. That's what I want, because I feel like, you have to work on that. Like I'm not entitled to that. Just because I have a business, just because I have a freight brokerage doesn't mean I'm entitled to anything.
No. Well, take a look at your story. You've been doing this for years and you stepped away from it.
Yeah.
And you got back into it. It's a process. I mean, your journey doesn't happen overnight. It takes time.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. Right. So I feel like, a realistic time frame is, it took us 22 months, it took us almost 2 years of every single day. And really it was when we got off the tech bandwagon of, email this, everything else. And I'm like, no, I'm done. I'm like, pick up the phone. We got to start dialing. We got to start getting in front of people. And like, there's a direct correlation on our P&L to where the growth really took off. And that was because we picked up the phone and we started dialing and we got away from a lot of that stuff. So could it have happened sooner? Possibly. But like, I also feel like you need to go through a lot of these situations because building stuff up takes a lot longer than you think. It is not easy. It's not just, transfer your book of business anywhere and then boom, everything takes off. Like you got to work for that.
And I've seen agents that come on that have books of businesses, and you know what, say it's it's a $4 million book of business and they're expecting to come on and bring the $4 million book right off the bat. There's a process to it. I mean, think about it now. A lot of the larger accounts you're dealing with, they have processes in order to onboard a new broker to their company. So that takes time. I've seen that take anywhere from a week to 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Especially if legal teams involved too. So yeah, you got to have realistic expectations. I mean, any type of business you build is going to take time.
Yeah.
And it's not, is it easy? I mean, I think part of it can be luck as well too. You could just have all of a sudden all the cards lay out in the right order, and you know what, it all comes just at once. But the reality is that doesn't always happen as well either.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to go out there and, I was just talking to a guy last week, I believe, and he was like, hey, I'm thinking about going out on my own. Can you talk to me about this? And I'm like, A, do you have the money? I'm like, do you have the capital to sustain 6 months of not taking a dollar? Yeah. I'm like, you got to start there.
That's the minimum is 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I would even bet on having a year's worth to sustain yourself until you build. You will make money in that period of time, but give yourself. And that's the thing. I've seen a lot of freight agents come on board who thought they were going to make it happen in the first 3 months.
Yeah.
And they give up
because
it didn't happen. It wasn't the expectation they expected. The sad thing is I've seen it after that. They've left after 3 months. And then the 4th month, that big, huge account that they were working on came on board and they would have sustained themselves based on that. But yeah, you give up. Don't give up too soon.
Yeah.
But have that expectation that you got to finance yourself for a bit to get yourself going.
No, you really do. Right. Like you have to have the capital for that. And then I also told them, I'm like, do you have an attorney? I'm like, number 2, do you have an attorney? And if not, I'm like, you need to talk to him. You need to what have you signed at your current place? And then, and then I said, number 3, I'm like, are all of your accounts on board? And he's like, well, I'm like, exactly. I'm like, there are companies who are like, yeah, we've been working together for 10 years. And this was the exact example. He's like, I've been working with these guys for 10 years, but they said they can't follow me. They can't leave. And I'm like, that sucks. But I'm like, again, you got to account for these things.
That's huge, actually. You know what? If you're thinking of going on your own, have that realistic conversation with your customer. Like, have them on board that they're willing to move. And if you can try and have some of that process set up before your actual start date, that's a huge step. But how disappointing if you think that my relationship was that solid that the customer is just automatically going to follow me and then they don't because of whatever roadblocks they have within their company. That's a tough one. That's a tough pill to swallow. So have those conversations. That's good advice.
Dude, it like, cause that was just like with anybody, man. I thought I was going to be a millionaire within 6 months of starting my business. Right. I feel like everybody kind of goes through that, but again, you live and you learn. You really need to be prepared for a lot of this. Right. And again, like it is all market driven, because it doesn't matter how the freight market's, performing. And then, I think like another thing too is are you willing to jump on the phone and build up that system to where you're making that outreach every single day? Because, again, like your customers aren't going to find you. You have to find them. You have to be really committed to that. And, it's like, it doesn't matter if we're in a freight recession, not in a freight recession, I'm going to win no matter what. Right. Like with the election that just happened, I'm like, I don't care who's in office. I'm going to win. Like it's as simple as that. I have made that deal with myself. I will not quit and I will win. So it's like, again, like no matter what you see out there, no matter what's going on out there, you have to accept the fact that if you're going to be out on your own, no one's coming to save you. Right. Like I literally just talked about this last week. I'm like, I love working with SPI. SPI is great, but they're not making cold calls for me.
No,
they're not dispatching out my trucks for me.
No.
They're not booking my trucks for me. I have to do all of that. Right. And it's like, you have to be committed to that. If you're going to be out on your own, if you're going to make a change, because like I am of the mindset that these next 4 years will be the best 4 years business opportunity wise that we might ever see in our lifetime. Because there is no denying President Trump is a very pro business president. You can't argue that. But again, like you have to be prepared for that windfall. If it's out there, again, it's not going to fall into your lap. You have to have the systems in place to have that outreach to hit those metrics every single day.
100%. And that's the beauty about the agent program, is that we've taken away the whole accounts receivable, the payables, onboarding carriers, all that stuff's taken away, which are not revenue generating activities, so that the agent can focus on sales, building relationships, finding carriers to book their loads with, revenue generating activities. So they have all the time in the world to be able to go and build a book of business and not be, sidetracked by, oh, my customer hasn't paid, or I got to do collections for 2 hours. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, is a lot of conversations that I've had out there in the market is the financial viability of your business, right? Because like if they're going to onboard you as a provider, they need to make sure you're going to be in business for 12 months, right? Because like, and that's a whole other thing that's never on people's mind, right?
100%.
And then same thing, like, having somebody out there who's checking credit, checking all of that stuff, making sure that they're an actual customer that you can get. But on top of it though, like that's a whole other thing, like where we have the opportunity and the ability to operate as a $200 million operation because we have that backing with it, right? So it's like, I also look at it as if you're going out there, like say going into 2025, you're like, all right, I'm going out on my own. You might not have worked in an operation that has a claims department, a credit department, and insurance, all of that back office support. So this gives you that opportunity to really understand, like, damn, there are levels to this game. And and I feel like even if things improve, like say things do improve next year, people like they're going to be even more microscopically picking apart their providers to make sure, like, are you who you say you are? 100%. Are you going to be around? Because, again, like nobody's going to make that switch. And then, cause I mean, dude, like you see
carriers do it too, though.
Yeah. 100%, as they should.
I agree. They should. I mean, if I was a carrier, you want to be dealing with people that are reputable, people that have the financial stability, that have a track record of being in business for a period of time. I mean, that's all important. I mean, actually, it's funny. We've onboarded a few agents who are actually their own self-sufficient 3PL providers in the past. And they found when coming on to SPI, just looking at, how quickly we pay out carriers and just our track record and how long we've been in business and financial stability, they've actually got better rates from those carriers because they're with a provider that actually has security.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. It actually gave me a whole new appreciation for it does matter who you work for. Like it really does.
Dude, it really does. Right. And I think that I think people are going to continue to be selective going into 2025 about who they're going to onboard, who they're going to work with, because, again, like if capacity does tighten up, which, the data is out there that things are, it's going to change, right? Like the severity of the flip, I don't think anybody actually knows that.
No.
But, again, like that, when capacity tightens up, which it inevitably will, how are you going to operate in that environment as a broker? Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that have been operating in a broker's market for the last 4 years. Because it has been, right? Like even during 21 and 22, when rates were sky high, it was still easy to cover freight because it was pretty much tell me your price, got it approved, sent in the truck, and then it dropped back down to where capacity was loose. Supply and demand. It's basic economics 101,
Right.
supply versus demand. I don't know if enough people are prepared for when there is no supply of trucks anymore. And it is, you have to fight for those coverage and everything, and you're not in power. And I think everybody goes through that at some
I
point.
think those are conversations you have to have with your customer too. What is your plan when the market tightens up and there's no carriers? And yes, this lady be like, oh, I deal with my asset-based carriers, which great. There's a place for that too. But I think every customer has to have a couple brokers in their back pocket for when things tightened up and you know what, you're having challenges covering loads.
Yeah. And that, but like that's where you earn your keep, right? Like when you're going out there and you're developing customers from cold call to onboarding, you're not starting on their power lanes.
No,
you're not at all.
Why would they give it to you if they don't even know you? I mean, I would never give my biggest lanes to somebody I never knew or didn't and never had any credibility with or trust built with. Like that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's your earn it freight. That's where you're going to go in and do it. And you know, and I feel like people should also look strategically into who they're going after, right? Like I was just talking about this where it's like, I mean, I'm not affiliated with Kraft Heinz at all, but like, could I move Kraft Heinz's freight? 1000% I could. Probably better than all of their current providers because I am that confident in my abilities. But could my operation sustain that business if the requirements were we need you to move 500 loads a day, right? So I feel like knowing who you're going after going into this, because like again, say the market improves, right? And there are opportunities that are out there. The last thing you want to do is put yourself in a position or your operation in a position where you actually can't do it, right? And then you decline a bunch of tenders, then you're kicked out and you're never getting that business ever again.
Respect what you can handle, and you got to be honest with the customer about what you can handle.
Yeah, 100%.
And where you feel where you can be a good fit for them. They don't know, so you got to tell them where you're going to be a good fit for them. And the crazy thing was when the market tightens up, and all of a sudden there's no trucks out there, and the calls start going out to the brokers. Those don't come out at peak time during the day, normal business hours. Yeah. Those come out at the end of the day on a Friday afternoon where there's a load that needs to be moved. And it's the broker who works after hours are the ones that are going to reap a lot of the benefit.
Dude, work ethic is the most, I mean, I say it all the time. That's my greatest asset is my work ethic. Like hands down, it is nothing other than the fact that you will not outwork me.
Yeah.
When it boils down to it, if it's late nights, early mornings, does not matter to me. And again, like whether you're an agent or you're building your book of business for somebody as a W-2 employee, you have to take that approach in there because it's not a 9-to-5 gig. Oh. No, like again, it's like if you want a 9-to-5 job, go work at Wells Fargo. You can clock in at 9, you're done at 5. You don't have to answer emails until the following morning, but you're also only going to make 40, 50 grand a year for the rest of your life as well at that point. So exactly. no risk, no reward at that point.
Totally. No, I think a lot of the times, I mean, I had an example with Maddie and Tynan. This is going back 6 months ago. They were working on an account, never got anything out of the account. They were happy who they're using a broker. And one day, you know what? Couldn't get a hold of the broker after hours. Mm-hmm. Gave them a call. They moved it. All of a sudden, then it was that one project that led them to start getting more and more projects. And after hours freight or stuff that comes in at the last minute that needs to be covered, it's where you prove your worth.
That line right there, that's why you need to follow up every single time because everybody's good until they're not. Mm-hmm. And it sounds simple, right? But it's the truth. Everybody's good until they're not, until somebody doesn't pick up the phone, somebody drops the ball. It does. And they need that last minute recovery because again, when you're faced with that situation for the first time that you're failing a customer, because it's inevitable, you're going to fail. It happens. Most people don't know how to react. They kind of do clam up into a shell. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. I've been there before, but ultimately it's in those moments though, like that's when that first opportunity is going to come for that prospect. Right. And Kara Brown said this at DatCon earlier this year. And this, I love this line, is that she says, all of your customers are somebody's top prospect and you need to treat it as such. Mm-hmm. And that to me is like the line out there.
100%. I even relate that to even the agency model as well too. Do you not think our agents are getting contacted 5-10 times a week from prospective companies that want to recruit them? Absolutely. That's where you got to work on your stickiness factor to ensure that, you know what, your agents and your customers are happy so they don't want to leave.
Yeah, no. And that's exactly it. Right. Is I feel like, you know, when you're going down to just building up that relationship, when you're going out there, just doing the simple things day in and day out, right? Because, to me, it's like it's simple. It's not easy is what, because like we all know what to do in a lot of those situations, right? Like we all know. And I always, like, and maybe you don't know, maybe you've never experienced any fucking turmoil in your entire life. How would you want to be treated in those moments? How would you want to receive that information if you were the transportation manager, right? And again, like my entire perspective has shifted since I've been out on my own, where I'm like, just tell me, we'll come through anything. Because like, and I've been in some sticky situations here in the last year where there's a lot of stuff that happened that are out of our control: hurricanes, power outages, shutdowns. And you pick up the phone, you call your customer and say, hey, the only way that this doesn't work is if we stop communicating. I will always answer your call. I will always be there. And then you take charge in those moments and you formulate a plan. You bounce ideas off of each other. You work with each other.
So our buddy Steve, who lives out in South Florida, just south of Tampa Bay, they're prepared. They're prepared for everything. I mean, they went through their hurricane. He's got a backup generator. He's got his sat phone. Like, he is dialed in if anything goes down, because his business is that important to him. He does not want to fail his customers. Yeah, I totally respect that. I think it's brilliant.
Dude, it is. But like, at the end of the day, man, like you have to be prepared. And of course, people are going to understand if it's a hurricane. But like at the end of the day, though, if you're going to be out there and you're going to operate a company, you have to have contingency plans. Again, back to the systems, right? Systems and processes. That's where the real worth is inside of a business. And that's what I'm learning. The more and more successful entrepreneurs that I talk to, they said the real value is in the systems and the processes. It has very little to do with certain things. Like, that's what people actually look for to invest in, to acquire. They look for the systems and processes, and how can they take that and scale that?
Absolutely. And the thing is, you know what, even talking, hopefully we're not scaring people being prospective freight agents. It's work. It takes work. Anything takes work. But if you want it bad enough and you're willing to put the work in, you can do really, really well at it. And you take a look at the benefits of what you have by being your own agency. It's your own business, yet you're not having to finance your business. Your business is financed by someone giving you the best technology.
And that's exactly it, right, Mike? Because so many people out there are looking for, like, all right, how do I get investors? How do I raise capital? All this stuff. And I'm like, there's a capital partner that's out there right there that actually provides you with all of the operational support that you truly need. And, I would say, like, realistically, if you're going to go out there, and again, it could be shorter, it could be longer, but it took us, again, 22 months to actually feel like, all right, we got some real growth underneath our belt, and that comes from outreach every single day. That comes from working every opportunity that we possibly can to come in there. And again, I'm never going to try and scare somebody from going out and trying things on their own, but I also want them to know that, hey, if they hear it from me, that it's my truthful experience in what I'm going through out there, because it's so much harder than you think, but it is so much more rewarding than you could ever imagine. When you can go, because to me, it's like, man, like I just go back to starting in my bedroom on a broken folding table with a busted laptop 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago now, where it all started, and where a lot of discipline and focus, what it has been able to build up into, like it's so much more rewarding. It's very stressful. It is. There's a lot of times when you're starting out.
What business isn't stressful?
But that's exactly it, right?
You always got stress. You can be homing at the end of the day doing your receivables and payables in front of the hockey game or the football game, or trying to put out quotes to whatever you bid on. It's work, man. It's stressful.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? There's a lot of reward out of it too.
Dude, there is. And there is so much more opportunity that there is. And I'm convinced 2025, these next 4 years are going to be the greatest 4 years for opportunity that's out there. If you are willing to work for it, truly, you will succeed. Like, if you can't win in these next 4 years, I don't know if there's going to be much for you.
Yeah. But even this business too, like being a freight agent, is not for everybody either.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to have that right mindset as well. And you got to be willing to be kicked around a little bit and still be able to bounce back the next day and go, you know what, I want this. I'm going to continue to do this.
But those are the moments, though, Mike. Those are the moments that actually build you. It is not when things are going good. Like, it is as counterintuitive as it sounds. You become better when shit falls apart, right? Like, I have become so much more effective and decisive in my business when things fell apart, where I'm like, how do I never have this happen ever again? you know? And again, like for me, like Mike, you could tell me don't touch the stove, Chris, it's hot.
You'll touch the
I'm
stove.
still going to touch the stove because I don't believe you, right? But then I'm going to know don't touch the fucking stove at that point.
That's true. It's true.
Well, hey man, I appreciate it. That's it for the 30 minutes. That flew by.
Gee,
as it always does. But yeah, you guys, that's going to be it for today. I got a solo show tomorrow. Again, I'm going to continue to break it down on what we do, how we're building out our systems and everything inside of our business. And we'll probably break down some articles. We got a show or a guest on Friday as well, but that's going to be it. As always, you guys, if you guys got value in what you heard, which I know you did, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon. Now we got to end the stream. See, this is where